morning, everyone, and welcome back to Fuse Games Conference, completely online and free conference from Staffordshire University Games Department. I'm Rob Lambert, your host for the conference. Remember that you can access all talks this week via the Staff Games Development YouTube and Twitch channels. So make sure you like and subscribe for further updates and easy access. Otherwise, you can access the timetable and links to each session from our website, which will be popping up in a banner shortly. Our first guest today is a senior lighting artist at Electronic Arts who boasts a wealth of technical experience in an integral area of game presentation. And also joining us is going to be the games art director at Staffordshire University, Dave Edwards. So good morning to the both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Edwin, you've been in lighting for a fair while now. Are we going to talk about your journey this morning?
Yeah. The idea is to have a talk about like my whole life, basically, like a really personal focused talk, and what I've been doing since basically I was a teenager, and then my whole journey until my present at EA. So yeah, that's the idea. I have like a little bit of a demo at the end. So it is to show some work.
To see the magic happen.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot something to see what does a lighting artist do.
Lovely. Shall we get going?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. So Edwin Vargas Cortes. So that's me, and hopefully in this talk you're gonna get a little more of an insight about my career path and my choices. And this is like a really personal presentation, like I said. So let's do it. So who is this guy? Who's me? I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. That's my home country. And Bogota at the time, I was born in the 80s, right? So Bogota at the time, 80s, 90s, was not really known for its thriving video game industry. So we were really known for coffee, for biodiversity, for other kinds of stuff, but not for our video game industry. There was no industry back in the day. But what we did was play a lot of video games. So growing up, I used to play a lot of video games every day. I mostly play JRPGs. I play a lot of shooters back in the day. So this is like an older system. I used to play in those computers with those technical limitations, and I fell in love with video games, with what I was seeing on the screen, I was hearing. I spent a lot of time over my youth, like playing video games. And with that, parallel to that, I was studying on a technical high school. That meant that I had access to resources, and I learned how to code and to use tools there in my high school years. So that gave me like this mix of wanted to play video games and starting to learn how to do video games. So at that time, I realized that video games had a power to change the world, and I wanted to be part of that. Actually, one of the things that I like to share is that I learned English by playing Final Fantasy VI, which is why it's in this image there in the slide, because at that time we didn't have like that much of an internet. So I was with a dictionary trying to figure out what they were saying, just because I was so invested in the game. So yeah, so I kind of learned English by playing games. So I figured out games that had that kind of power, not just to entertain, but just to teach people and to change lives. And then I realized that what I wanted to do for a living, which was like, I want to do something related to the field. So how do I do that in Colombia, in Latin America, which was like at the time, there was no career path to be a video game artist. So I started by learning the basics. So I asked myself, what's the closest thing to become a video game artist? So I started studying graphic design at the National University of Colombia, which is here illustrated in this slide. So that helped me get a solid foundation on design theory and photography and digital art. So I started like doing that theoretical part and doing the part of design with the goal of becoming a game artist. So what I found out studying while studying there was that there was no 3D subject or 3D signatures there. So I had to actually start learning 3D on my own. So I started learning 3ds Max 4 back in the time. Uh, and I had the only thing that I have was my documentation. So I started learning the documentation and trying to make sense of that software because I wanted to learn how to do games and I wanted to learn how to do 3D games. So I started experimenting with that medium, and I started like trying to mix that with animation on what the assignments I had in the university, right? So I kind of, without knowing, I was starting to learn what it took to make games. So what was the process behind that? How do you make like a 3D object? How do you shape that? So those years helped me like get a basic grasp and a good, theoretical foundation of what I want to do in the future. So I finished university, and as I said, there was no industry there. So parallel to what I was doing, I learned how to do websites. So I had to put bread on my table. So I started working for doing websites and freelancing. I actually started working for one of the first mobile game companies in Colombia. At the time, we were doing like pixel art. So we were not doing 3D. So I was not using my knowledge to do 3D in that company, and to do web design, I wasn't doing that too. So I started looking for freelance work outside my country. So I started contacting people over the internet and got my first gigs as a freelancer doing 3D. So that lasted like for several years. And I basically what I was doing was trying to balance my career, like the thing that gave me money, with what I wanted to do because I couldn't get like a proper job at the time because there were no companies there. So I started trying to improve and seek more information. So at the time, internet became my tool for learning and for researching. So I started like looking for forums, looking for more information, and trying to hone my skills on 3D while doing that second, adventure of being a web designer. So from this point on, everything that you see in images is going to be like work that I did. So kind of, so you can see like the evolution that I was going through graphically. Um, so after years of doing that, I figured out like it was time to start a young company. So what I did was, okay, let's jump in this adventure of starting a company and trying to live off making games. So that was the goal, living by making games. So this company started as an adventure with some friends. And while doing that, managing a company, I got to experience all the parts of what it took to do games on an indie level. So I got a solid foundation of all art disciplines. So I was doing from rigging to modeling to character art. So I was doing everything because we were like so few of us that we have to actually know the whole process. So I was doing everything, and over the years I started gravitating more towards environment art and lighting especially. So also while doing that, I started like really learning how to make shaders and visual development. So that tech part was still important to me and helped me realize, a pipeline for me to follow. So I was doing more like a tech card role, like debugging and optimization, all this stuff. And all this stuff was self-learning. So I started looking to get a more formal training. So I started like at the time I was like trying to get online courses and trying to get everything I could to match my skills and to try to validate if what I was doing was like up to standard within the industry. Um, so during that time with my own company, we work on projects with clients all over the world. We did a lot of edutainment games, marketing related games, VR stuff. We won a couple of awards and we were nominated internationally for the work that we did with those games for those clients. So it was a really good learning experience for me personally, and it was great to make that other side of this job like uh, a good part of my own process. It was like managing people and having the soft skills to build a team and to make them uh, perform and to deliver. We actually had the opportunity to publish our own IP on consoles and PC. At the time, we did one game for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation Vita at the same time, and we were like less than 20 people in the company, which seems crazy now, but we managed to do that. And I can personally, I don't know how to manage game production and how to try to actually publish the thing. So it was a time of learning how to negotiate with publishers, how to like manage a budget. So it was doing lots of stuff that wasn't that related to art, but was necessary for like making a company work. So it was going all well. At the time, I stopped living in Colombia for life things. I was living in Panama, which is a neighboring country at the time. So we were basically doing remote work, well before pandemic and all this stuff. The normal for us to do remote work. So it was going well until it didn't. So the company crashed. Like it was like after 6 years, the company just crashed. We weren't viable financially. So there was this time on my life where everything went like it was a big crisis because the company crashed and it was my only source of income because I was like doing everything related to my company was my only source of income, and I was in another country where I was living legally there, but I had no permission to work legally there. So it was a catch-22 because I was living in another country, I couldn't get a job in that country, and I needed to rebound, right? So I needed to find what to do. So I started like asking myself, why do I do it? My life is crashing down, and I have these skills, and I can't get a job. So just keep going. I was my way of thinking was let's keep going, let's try to find the path still with my dream of I want to live by making games. So how do I get there and how do I pass all of this? So I started working on my skills, trying to find my focus, and I started like really focusing at that time. I started focusing on doing just lighting art because I found out that it was a great it was the thing that I enjoyed the most about that, and I didn't want to do other stuff. So I started working and looking at freelance from other studios during that time. So I worked like in 3 or 4 titles with indie studios all over the world, focusing on just lighting and just environment art, basically. And then at the same time, as I couldn't get a job in the country that I was in Panama, so the only way for me to do that legally was to found another company. So I founded another company which focused on VR and AR experiences. And we have the good fortune of having like some clients there in the aeronautic space. So we ended up working with airlines and with airports and doing VR stuff for their simulations or for their learning purposes. But all of that was like doing a video game. So and we did a lot of video game based learning at the time. And at the same time, I got actually hired by Teravision Games, which is one of the largest Latin American studios. So those guys hired me, and I was working from Panama remotely with those guys. So I started working with them on environment and tech art side. So I started like doing the work. So my mindset there was, I want to level up my skills. I need to have more knowledge, and I need to be focused on what I want to do career-wise. So I started doing more tech art stuff, doing more shaders, doing more VFX stuff, and doing more optimization stuff there. So I was hired as a senior technical artist. So I started like trying to sell the idea to my managers that I wanted to be more like a lighting artist or a technical lighting artist, because I saw an opportunity there because there was no lighting dedicated team at the time in the company. So I started slowly transitioning and selling the idea of I want to be in charge of lighting and look development for the titles that we did. So they bought the idea, and I started transitioning to be an exclusive lighting artist at the time. And in the meantime, I was working doing freelance, exclusively as a lighting artist. So doing my own company, doing freelancing, and working in a studio. So I was balancing a lot of that. But at the time, I felt that it was the only way for me to grow, and it was what I needed to do to keep going and getting my dream done. So that happens. That happened like in the span of 4 or 5 years. So I started working by year three. I was pushing my skills, and so I put a objective on myself of I want to work on personal projects, and I want to start doing a lot of more personal stuff. So I stopped doing freelance, and I started just getting into personal stuff and trying to do explorations on different paths of lighting, and I wanted to basically explore what it takes to be a lighting artist from the technical perspective and from the expression perspective, right? So I started doing the objective here was to express myself for lighting. So trying to imagine something and trying to get to a point where what I was imagining in my head could be translated to what I was seeing on the screen. So what happened is that I got to own the lighting discipline at my studio at Television. So I was leading the lighting area art. So I was like pushing the boundaries of what could be done there. So that meant that I was responsible for more than my own work. So I have to formulate work for other members of the team and how we were going to do the things lighting wise. So then I started owning the process on my own career path. So the idea was to focus on creating more workflows rather than like be lighting scenes. So the idea was to, at the time we were working on what project that is it's due to be published later on this year. It was Killer Clowns for Outer Space, the game. So I was basically doing the workflows, doing visual development, working closely with the art directors to try to get the look and feel of the movie on the movie. So I was more focused on creating workflows and documenting best practices and try to create a framework for other artists to work on the project. So that meant I had to do a technical part of the lighting. So I was documenting how can you light a scene, what were the best practices to do that, and then trying to investigate and to keep up with the current rendering trends. So learning how were the best practices for rendering an image and trying to get an image on the best way possible. And with that, I was trying also to build connections, trying to meet new people and trying to meet people that had more experience than me at the time and that I think that were more experienced. So I was trying to ask questions and join more communities. So yeah, it was a time of just like trying to be a guide for the rest of the team and trying to keep growing myself and my skills. So after that, I wanted to just keep with that pace. So I started doing a project each more or less. It was like a whole year. I took 1 year of just doing, personal projects and stuff on the side of my regular job. So I started doing those projects and I put a deadline on them. So I was like, I have one month or 1 week or 2 weeks to finish this, but I'm gonna finish because I wanted to ramp up my portfolio because most of the work that I've done either was for a client and was under NDA or was not published, which was also into NDA. So I couldn't show anything on my portfolio. So I wanted to ramp up my portfolio, which is I think is important for an artist to have a portfolio always up to date. So what I did was each project was basically focusing on one part of the lighting process. So I wanted to do one project with baked lighting, just baked lighting. I wanted to do another project just with dynamic lighting. I wanted to do another project doing mix, another project just focusing on color grading, or another project focusing on storytelling, another project focusing just on optimization. And it was like 1 year where I did, I don't know, like 20 different projects that not all of them I published, but I still learned and kept doing and going, uh, doing my growing up and my personal growth. So the next step for me was to network and share what I've learned over the years. So I started getting advice from more experienced lighting artists. So I kind of like doubled down on seeking more experienced artists to help me get my goals. So I did more networking, joined some communities there, just focused on lighting or cinematic, because at the time I was interested in the intersection between lighting, gameplay, and cinematic art. So I was trying to look for those networking opportunities while I kept working on my lighting skills, and also kept working on my soft skills and trying to not only learn what I done over the years, so just trying to build up on that, and always be willing to learn from everyone. Over the years, I've noticed that it's not just the more experienced people that give you advice. Even the most junior artists can teach you something because everyone's experience is different. So you can grow from everyone. And the other thing that I was like very keen on doing was trying to share what I've learned, trying to be open for for less experienced artists, and try to share that, and grow together. Um, so that brings us to the present. Right now, like as the start of this presentation, I'm working as a light senior lighting artist at the Sports. And what I do is basically lighting all day for cinematics, environments, and gameplay on their products. So to circle back on the first slide, who is this guy talking to you? So my name is Edwin Vargas Cortes. I'm a senior lighting artist. I've been doing games for 70 plus years. I shipped 5 commercial titles on PC and consoles. I have delivered more than 100 successfully delivered projects, and I'm still learning how to do art. And I don't want to stop learning how to do art. I just want to keep being the best artist that I can be until the day I can no longer do this. And these are my socials. If you want to have any questions or any guidance or whatever, just hit me up. I'm always there. I try to help whatever I can. I may be delay on responding, but I will do my best. Takeaways from this, and I hope I'm not being like too quick, but I'm sorry, I talk like crazy. So consistency for me was key over my career. Being able to keep going no matter what, and being able to keep that mentality of not of finishing things up. Because when I was younger, I would want things to be perfect, and over the years I found out that perfect is not finished. So it's better to have 3 finished projects than one perfect project, which is never published. The second is that growth is not linear. So you expect that you're constantly leveling up and up, and that's not true. Sometimes you just fall and you have to, pick up the pace again, and then you go up and then you go down. The path is not linear. The path could be whatever, and it's different for everyone. This is just my story, but other people can tell you different. So growth is not linear. It's so important to seek advice. So whenever in doubt, you just seek advice. With the technology, with the internet, with social media, we have the opportunity to connect and to seek advice from practically everyone and anyone in the industry. And the worst thing that can happen is that they don't answer. Like maybe you shoot an email, shoot a message, and they don't answer. That's it. Maybe another person will answer, and you can grow your network, and you can seek and you can learn from those people that are willing to help you. Next is keep working on your skills. Don't ever stop working on leveling up and working on your own interests. and find your focus. When I was starting on my career, I was doing everything, like from characters to concept to whatever. But you can't be good at everything. It's very rare to be a person that can do everything in regards to art for games. So try to find what you're good at, and try to find what you are willing to do, and what you're best doing. So trying to find the cross between what you're good at, what you can do, and what you're willing to do. It's like this way to find your focus, and whatever makes you happy. And in that way, when you go to work, because you're gonna be like doing this for years and years, you're not gonna feel tired, because you're gonna feel like you're actually growing at your job. So thank you. This is the end of the first part. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, there's a few in the comments, Edwin. I'm going to start with the first one from Mike Acosta, who's asking, can you tell us your 5 top communities to join for lighting artists? So,
right. So top of my mind, Lightning Bot is a great community. Ron, I met there, so it's a good community. There's also Experience Points. There's also another couple of communities that like I don't remember the names actually, but there's a lot of forums. For example, the Unreal Engine forums are great resource of information about rendering, lighting, and everything in general. What else? And there's a couple of more private communities. I'm a member of, for example, I'm a member of one community of cinematic artists too, which is a great resource for that intersection between cinematic and lighting artists. So there's a lot of real-time rendering talk there. That's everything I can think of. I'll let you know if I know and I remember anything else.
lovely. There's another one as well. With the evolution of real-time rendering and ray tracing technologies, where do you see the future of lighting art heading?
That's a great question. I think we're going through a future of fully dynamic lights. We're not quite there yet, but like PBL being like trying to be the standard on what we do on physical based lighting, right, and physical based rendering. I can see a future when we are fully dynamic, when we have these solutions of fully dynamic, but I don't think it's going to apply to every project. Maybe you are doing a mobile game, or you're doing VR games, and in those spaces, doing backlighting or even doing fake lighting, that's going to be prevalent for years to come. So I think it's going the PC and console space is going to fully dynamic, but I think baking is not going anywhere. It's not going out anywhere anytime soon.
And there's a more general question as well, from Sebastian Capitan, which I believe is, what do I need for my journey as a future game development game development full time? I'm presuming what they're asking is what are the best skills for me to have in lighting art to be successful?
Right. Oh, well, the best skills will be like a solid good foundation in color theory and physical based rendering and lighting. That would be great to have. A good foundation on expression. Like, because the basics and the foundation doesn't go away. It doesn't. That's the most important thing. The other thing for me is to have a good solid foundation on technical side of things, understanding materials, understanding how the materials react to light. That's super important. And also understanding how to optimize, not being like a technical artist in that regard, but understanding how to do proper optimization of at least the concept of first optimization. So that's important, because that sets you up from other professionals, right? So I've seen people that has a lot of art skills, and that's great. But sometimes it's good to have optimization, because if we're making games, we are constrained by budgets, right? So depending on the console, depending on on our platform for displaying. We have budgets for rendering, we have budgets for lighting. So it's important to have a person that helps me or helps with that process of being on budget.
I guess the next question I'm going to ask, going back towards the start of your career, really, is about you setting up your own company. And what I wanted to ask is, within the first 2 years of you setting up that company, what major learning points did you have to go through, and what advice would you give somebody starting up in that first 2 years?
Well, that's a big question. So, what did I learn? I learned that if you're starting a company, that's different from just making games. That's the first thing. So, running a company is different from being an art director. It's different from being a design director. Normally you will have to do those things. You have to do the game design part of the things, or the game development part, and the art part. But you are also responsible for the actual company. That means like the administrative part of the company. So I learned that the hard way. So I learned that I need an accountant. I need people to help me. I need a lawyer. I need people to help me negotiate contracts with clients, with publishers, with vendors. That's one of the things, and people doesn't often think about that. Don't often think about that, because we're so focused on, I just want to make games and that's it. So yeah, that was the first thing I learned. The second thing is we need to make the company be healthy, in regards to, if we're going to live off with this, whatever things we do need to be, we need to be able to live off this, right? So the company needs to be profitable, which is key. Your company needs to, if you want to make games, your games needs to sell. That's basically it. In regards to technical and art aspects of this, I learned that it's better to specialize. Like if the team permits it and allows it, there's people that are better than you. You're not going to be like the best at everything. So you have to be able to understand where your skills are lacking, and then bring up the appropriate people to help to compensate those skills. Also, it's super important to be able to talk with other disciplines. We as artists, and especially if we're production artists and work in video games, we don't live in a vacuum, and we don't do like this is the best art I can do. There's other constraints that you have to talk with programmers, and maybe the lighting that you did is not working because it's too heavy. Maybe the lighting that you did is not working because it doesn't help the gameplay part of the game. So we have to remember that we are artists, but we are more like designers. Like and still a bit from Filippo's talk the other day, which I saw the other day. We are more designers, and I agree with him in that regard. We are more designers. We have the responsibility to our players. So our lighting and whatever we do is consistent with performance, frame rates, and also with the goals from the gameplay. Because without that, the game is not going to be playable, and then it's not going to be a good game. And we have a say in that. So being able to talk with other disciplines, being able to work with them, and have an open mindset about like being able to compromise, right? So sometimes it comes down to, hey man, you have to do this with one light because we don't have the budget for more than that light. So you have to be creative in your solutions, and you have to work with winning constraints.
Lovely. I know that my colleague Dave has got a question he would like to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Edwin. I suppose for students getting into lighting art, what's a good place to start in terms of, you mentioned color theory, and I've always sort of said things like cinematography skills and stuff like that would be really important. How would you recommend students look at that as like from a complete starting point? What's good resources that you would recommend?
I would recommend Substance PBR rendering guide. I think it's still up there somewhere, because I was looking at it the other day. I think they changed the link somewhere, but if you look Substance PBR rendering guide, it's going to pop up. that's a good place to start, like to learn how to render things properly in PBR. In regards to lighting, there's a call. Perfect. That's perfect. Uh, there's a couple of courses online that you can actually do that help you from start to finish. It's important. I don't know why, but people don't tend to read documentation. So read documentation of the engine that you're working on. There's a lot of stuff there. For example, if you, I've been working with Unreal for 8 years now, and another 8 years working with Unity before that. And I always started reading the documentation. Reading those has, best practices, has a lot of, actually useful information on what you're doing. That's a great resource. And if you want to learn color theory, there's a lot of resources online. I don't want to say Wikipedia, but Wikipedia has a lot of information that helps you like understand what is it about color theory and color psychology. I think there's a book called The Book of Color. I don't remember the author, but it's a great read to understand color psychology. Um, Also, try to look when you look at to a movie. When you're watching a movie, when you're watching series, try to look and imagine what went through the heads of the people doing that. So, and you'll find that most of the time, when you look at like a really nice night or really nice shot on a movie, the lights are not coming from where they should be coming, and then you start doing that mindset of actually analyzing the images that you see. So normally, what I do is when I watch a series or a movie, I watch it one time as a spectator and another time as an artist. So what I do is like trying to get like I like this shot here. So what does make this shot work? Like lighting wise and also composition wise. Where were they thinking when they shot it, and what was the process for color grading or what they were doing? So trying to get that eye and that fine eye to find how the cinematographers did things, it helps a lot. So I would say start working on those. And what I said, learning materials, learning a little bit of technical art, that's super important for us as artists.
Edwin, we've got another question from Mike. What is one of the most challenging projects you've worked on, and how did you address the lighting challenges it presented?
Oh, the more challenging was what I'm working right now, but I can't discuss that publicly. So I'll go one step back. When I was doing Killer Clowns, the challenge was that we had an open world and we have a procedurally generated world. So, and we have exterior and interior lighting. So we had a lot of the budget for that game went into rendering and lighting. So the challenge was that we have like 2 square kilometers of level design that needed to be light, and we have only two lighters. So we have to figure out a way to light everything in a way that was like modular, that we will like kill ourselves doing that, and that we could actually upgrade and update things as our direction needed. Uh, so what we came up was a system that helped us. Like we did little blueprints for the lights. So if we change anything in one light, it will update everything in the scene. So and we made use of a lot of techniques like I don't remember the technical name, but what we are doing was basically cooling the lights by distance. So the further away you were from light, that light will disappear, and then we just like trying to also optimize the shadow cascades, because we were doing this open environment with inside wind interiors too. So trying to optimize what was rendering in each step. So it was difficult because we had a lot to do with that small thing. So that's what I say. Like that's where creativity comes in hand, and then you try to find ways to make more with less.
Lovely. I've got one more last question. And again, back to you running your own studio. Is any tips for dealing with publishers and external parties when you're trying to get back to doing things like lighting art on a daily basis? If you obviously you need work, so how do you get back to it as quickly as possible?
Well, with publishers, there's a whole lot of with publishers, always negotiate, always be clear on your milestones. Normally, what it works is that you deliver a milestone and you get paid, right? So you need to be really mindful of the milestones that you're willing to do, and don't compromise the pay for the whole thing. And negotiate that and be really open on what you can and what you can't do. Because when we are excited about the publishing reaching us and the stuff, you tend to overpromise. So it's not, don't put you in a position, don't put yourself in a position where you overpromise and underdeliver. Always try to underpromise and overdeliver. Always try to negotiate. And in regards to freelancing, always has your budgets at hand, right? So try to calculate how much money are you charging by an hour of work. That's how I do it, for example, or I used to do it. How much time, how much money it does cost an hour of my work, and try to charge hourly. Other people charge a flat rate, but that doesn't tend to work well for you, because if you end up doing more work, which is most of the time is the case, because the client is going to always want changes or another stuff that didn't come up in the first place. So you need to be aware of that, and always, by the love of God, always do a contract first.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I hear that we've got a small demonstration in store. Really excited to see what you're going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extend your screen so we can all see just that little bit bigger of a screen. We haven't disappeared, everybody. We just want to be able to see everything that's going on as well as possible.
Yeah, so I prepared a little bit of a demo. I used this scene that I found in the marketplace and some character from Paragon, which is everything is free on the asset marketplace from Unreal. So I wanted to give a little bit of an insight of what's the workflow and what does the lighting work for a particular scene is. So this is the scene. Normally, what we will have as lighting artists is the finished scene with the materials applied. So it will look something like this. Just on the tech side, we're using Unreal Engine 5.3. This has Lumen enabled, so that's where you see everything glowing up, because Lumen is working right now. So normally what you will see is a plain scene, no lighting applied. It may or may not have like the lighting fixtures like this, these little lamps that you see here. It may or may not have that. But our work starts with a question, and it's what's the direction? What do we want to do with this scene in regards to light? And that takes the form of a mood board, or an art direction for your art director, right? So you meet with your art director beforehand, and he tells you, okay, we're going to do a recreation of the fifth element. So this is basically the mood board that I start working with. What I do here is just to get a grasp of the general mood of the scene, what I want to do, what I want to focus on with the lighting. So I started like getting references from the movie, basically looking at the brilliance of the lights, looking at these little halos here, how the lights interact with the rest of the scene, and what can I infer from those. So first of all, and first and foremost, if you don't have like an art direction or you're doing a personal project, just start by gathering reference. It could be movies, it could be paintings, it could be animation, whatever references serve to the objective that you have are going to be good. I'm using PureRef for this. I don't know if you have this software. This is a free software and lets you basically copy and paste images from different sources and lets you form this mood board. You could use Miro or other tools to do this. So basically having a clear reference helps you out. So I basically choose these two images to do my first mood. And then what I have here is the scene with lighting, like I said. And I wanted to recreate that look of the fifth element. So I came up with this lighting scheme, this lighting scenario. This is the first line that I did. Trying to get that feel, right? This is basically a sketch of that. I didn't polish it or anything. Just trying to get a general overall feel of that. And I was trying to combine these two, right? And even with this one. These were my main references. So I set up my lights, my three spotlights here that are affecting my character here, and I also set up the lighting for this big planet going behind that. And if we look at the whole situation of the scene, we're going to see that we see a lot of light fixtures placed there, right? And you may think that every light fixture has a light associated with it, which is PVR, right? That would be like a PVR way to do that. Like each light has its own emitter. But the thing is that we need this to be consistent. My frame rate here, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is the frame rate of the scene right now. Please keep in mind that I'm streaming at 4K and I have two monitors. So this is 40. Normally, if I wasn't streaming, it would be 60 FPS. So I need to be mindful of the frame rate. So if we're doing a shooter, for example, we need to have that frame rate going to 60 because we need the fluidity of the movement, and that's my budget, right? So what I did here was for every two lights, I have one light. So there are two light fixtures where there's just one light here. Why? Because I want to be mindful of the number of lights that I put in a scene, especially in this kind of scene, because this scene is completely dynamic. I'm not baking anything. So all those lights are going to get rendered and processed in real time. So it is important for us to first know what kind of path on workflow are we doing. If we're going to do backlighting, I can put any number of lights here, and what I'm going to do is basically process that and make that light maps, which are going to be textures. Like basically there are shadow textures that are going to be put in on top of the normal materials in real time. So all those lights are not going to get calculated and not going to get processed in real time. But this is not the case. We are doing a whole dynamic scene, so everything gets calculated in real time. So when I play this, every light that I have here, it's being calculated. So you have the mood. By the way, feel free to make any questions. If you have it, I can answer in real time. So you have the mood done, but you still need to be mindful of the optimization processes. And the same with this planet here. I have this big light, which is a red light, and what I'm doing is basically faking a little of the intensity of the light from the planet coming onto the stage. So what I'm faking here is this. If I were to move this, the reading on my scene is going to be totally different, and this is going to be super bright, but it's not going to have like the grounding of being that planet. So I wanted to have this very harsh light coming from behind her, but I didn't want to overtake the reflectors that I put in there. So basically what you're doing is lighting the scene, but at the same time getting the expression that you want, the mood that was like talk with the art director, or the mood that you were like trying to reach, but you are also trying to be mindful of the performance of the scene. So if we go here to optimization view modes, we can see light complexity. So for people that doesn't know how to read this, we have this scale here. The more blue that this is in the screen, the less resources it takes. So we have an area like this. This is not taking many resources, but we have an area like this, which is white, and this is taking a lot of resources because we have a lot of concurrent lights here. So I have 3 lights pointing to that direction, and then I have 2 more lights that are overlapping on that side of that same space. So this is one thing that we should take into account when lighting the scene. What I did for this was trying to, there's a property of the lights that it's called attenuation radius. So it's this property. And it basically what it is the radius on where the light has any influence on the surroundings. So what I did was have a really low attenuation radius so they don't overlap, and that helps me with optimization. Other thing that I can do is just to make the lights stop rendering at X length from the camera, so you have like disappearing lights at X distance from the camera. Um, that in regards to technical, that's one thing. Uh, but what if we wanted to do another mode for that? So how does light intersection affects the mood of one scene? So this is one lighting scenario that I did, and it tries to emulate like the look of the movie. But what if I wanted to do something completely different and change how people perceive the scene just with the light? So I'll do something like this, for example. Here, what I did was change the overall mood of the whole scene. I didn't change anything on the textures, and I didn't change anything uh, on the lights. I'm using basically the same number of lights. I just added two spotlights here to help you get this more whimsical and more foggy effect on the lights. And I just alter a little bit the exposure of the whole scene, and I alter a little bit the energy going from the brightness on the lights. But it gives off a total different vibe from the first scene, from the first mode that I had. So just by messing up with the color protection and the intensity of the lights and a little bit of color grading, we get a total different feel and total different mood for the same scene. And I can be even more extreme to that. What if we wanted this to be like an old movie? We could do something like this, for example, right? So basically what I'm doing is just changing the lighting situation here. I put, like some emissive material here, and I started like changing the brightness and disposition of the scene on top, because I wanted the theater to feel like it was the function was over, and it was just everything was light up, and I wanted it to look like an old movie. There's more or less that we can do in these scenarios, but the general idea is that we can affect how the people perceive or games or applications or on or scenes just with the lighting, and that's part of what we do. We just don't do like pretty images. We serve the purpose of the communicated what the project needs to communicate through lighting. So it is. I think it's a great job, and it's an important job in the whole pipeline, because we're in charge of the final rendering, what the user sees at the end, and it's a really powerful tool. And I'm not using like anything different than just light intensity, exposure, and what I love about cameras, and just trying to get that mood through those simple tools. And yeah, that's it. Any questions? Anything that I can help?
So, for any students that are watching this, Edwin, and you've mentioned a couple of times about exposure being a really important part of that process of defining what the type of light is going to appear like. How do we begin to do that? What are your tips? Can you show us
Well,
live what you would do?
yeah. Basically, what I start, it's exposure is on Unreal at least is controlled by the post process volume, right? So if we are talking about physical based lighting, what we'll do is look on a table. You can search on Wikipedia for orders of magnitude. I don't know if this is going to appear on the screen. It is not. Give me a second. Okay, so wait, it's in a verb. So basically, what I'll do is just see that there's a table, and the table tells me what's the correct exposure for some different lighting conditions. So, and what's the luminance for the scene and that different lighting conditions. So what I do is try to calculate what's the correct exposure for this particular scene. So I started like doing the assumption that we are doing on a night that's it's an interior at night. So what I do was basically get the camera to a good exposure and configure my camera to um, to be at that exposure, which is between 0.23 minus 0.23 to 1. So this is basically controlling the general overall exposure of the scene. So I can do it manually or I can do it by histogram. So if I do it manually, I will do it I will do it as if I were operating a camera. So if I change the shutter speed, I'm basically changing the exposure. So, or if I change the ISO, yeah. So basically what I'm doing is trying to balance out the image so it reads properly. And that should, and with the auto exposure settings, what I'm trying to look is that when I'm looking at a brighter part of the image balances out too. Does that resolve the question?
Yes, very much so. I just thought it would be a good topic to start off with, as you mentioned, and so did Filippo earlier on in the week, that it's really the exposure that we should be paying more attention to rather the intensity of the light itself.
Exactly.
After you've done decided an exposure of a particular shot, where do you go next, and what kind of things are running through your head in terms of process?
Well, the first thing that is trying to get the exposure right, because if I have my exposure, for example, if I underexpose the image, I'm going to lose the whole information under the shadows. I'm going to lose that. So this doesn't look right. Okay, it doesn't look natural. I'm losing detail. Or if I overexpose the image, it's going to be the opposite. I'm going to get clipping on the highlights. So be mindful of that. Like have a balanced image. And then what I'm doing is blocking out the main lights. For this case, the main lights on my project were these three reflectors. So I was blocking out the first three lights because I wanted to replicate this part of these shots basically. So I know that these are my main lights, and from this on, the scene starts to take place. So and then I start to identify what are my motivated lights. Motivated lights are lights that are present in the shot that are emitting light in the frame. So, for example, I had a lot of chandeliers here and candles. So those are my motivated lights. So I start like feeling those things and turning on and off lights as I needed to get the mood that I desire. Then I do like a mental pass of what it will take for me to try to optimize. So my first optimization is see what I can be cheat a little bit and use less lights that are needed there to get the same result. So that's why I did this. So I did a light that involves two light fixtures. So that way I have just one light to try to involve one area. Having done that, I start doing my detail lighting. That in this case will be this, like just trying to get some highlighting and trying to get some more detail out of the scene. No, I also tune the emissives. So, for example, in these reflectors, I want to have a little bit of a glow there going. So I turn up the emissive on just those reflectors, just to help sell the thing that she's on the spotlight of the shot. And lastly, what I'll do is just go to my cross-process volume and start working with my camera effects. So first, balancing out exposure, then using main lights, then secondary lights, then detail lighting, and then only then I start like messing up with vignette, messing up with chromatic aberration, messing up with depth of field, and the other options that we have in post-process volume. And then lastly, what I do is do color grading. So little tweaks in the way that we perceive color. Maybe the scene is too dark, so I just balance it out so the shadows are more lighter, or balance the color of the scene doing very color grading. That can be done inside the engine or outside the engine. You can have software like DaVinci or Nuke to do the color grading, and then bring up what you work there and inside the engine to do the color grading, or you can do it all inside the engine. There's the two workflows that you can have.
Fantastic. The next question I'm going to ask is within sort of regards to optimization and use of post-processing volumes. So I hear a lot of time from students of how to manage them in terms of scale of them, in terms of positioning of them. We talked about the FPS needing to be of a specific rate in order to be able to run correctly. What's your opinion on the scale and position of post-processing volumes in a larger scene, and how would you go about managing them to make sure that you're optimizing frame rate?
Okay. We should have just one global post-process volume if possible. Sometimes, depending on the game, that's not possible, because if you're entering, like for example, another dimension or a room that has a different feel, so you need those post-process volumes. What I will say is that try to use as less as possible, but I found that the main culprit of making things heavy on the post-process volumes are the post-process materials. So if you have a lot of post-process materials in each volume, that's gonna really impact your scene. So try to use the tools that have the post-process volume by default. And if you want to do like something like really special, maybe a on-screen deformation because your character is poisoned, so you have to do on-screen transformations. That's one thing that I would do. That will use post-process material. Otherwise, I try not to use them because they're kind of heavy. And if you use 2 or 3 of those, you're gonna see your frame rate tanking like super fast. The other thing is you can use the post-process volume to actually disable or change parts of the rendering of the engine. So, for example, you can use the post-process volume to affect the way lumen affects the scene. For example, decreasing the rate in which lumen updates the scene, the global lighting, and the quality of the global lighting. So you can actually use the post-process volume to cool and to try to scale back on performance if you need those milliseconds back in another thread of the game. So it is important to know that, and less is more in this case.
And just to sort of continue, you mentioned earlier on with larger scenes that you've worked on in the past, and having procedural workflow and having to sort of manage more lights within a larger scene, a much larger scene. Is this something that you typically do? And is this on do you do this on a world space level within your shader, or do you do this within a case of managing every light with universal settings? What kind of approach did you typically go for with these kinds of size of environments?
When it's a complex scene, especially when it's a procedural scene, we tend to do more like models or blueprints for the light. So we have like the geometry for any particular, for a reflector or for a, like a chandelier or whatever, or for a candle. So we have that in blueprints. So each candle has its properties, and those properties could be exposed. So if you need control over just one instance of that in the world, you can do that. But if you want to update everything, you will be either of having a blueprint or some central place to change or tweak things. And also having this setup is important. For example, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can actually have like different sub levels inside one level in Unreal. So I have everything that is not lighting related or that is coming from the environment. It's in its own level. So if I turn this off, the scene is just gonna be black. But I have another sub level which only contains the lighting. So that way I can work in parallel. So environment is doing their thing, I'm doing my thing, and we both are working the same thing at the same time. So that helps production because I I'm not waiting on someone to finish up something. I can do that in real time too and update that. When we're talking about like lights that are inside structures or lights that are placed on the level, uh, that is a little bit tricky because you actually need at least a block out of the scene to be able to, to see where you're going to put the lights. But when you are defining the overall look of the whole world, it's faster when you do it on sub levels. And you can actually define your sub levels if you right click on that and you change that to linear scenario. So Unreal is going to know that this is just linear and it's going to be a linear scenario for your game. So you can actually stream those in or out depending on that. So you can do a little bit of blueprinting, for example. You can hook up logic to see, okay, if I'm going out of this scenario and then come back, just load up totally different lighting setting, and you have everything contained on the same world. It's just changing the lighting, and that helps. For example, that helps your armor. So you can do that, and you can do a lot of stuff. Just with trying to get that modular mindset and just trying to just with a little bit of blueprinting knowledge, you can go a long way.
Here's a sort of a question that I get as well that within classes, certainly with environment artists that are trying to light their scenes. At what point do you receive an environment? In what state? And then what would be a minimum requirement in order for you to get going on lighting an environment?
Well, it's in production. It's kind of an interactive process. It's back and forth between environment and lighting. Uh, Normally, if there's nothing, I will get a blocking out. Like this is a blocking out of the scene. We need to have like a general mood. So I will do like global lighting, for example, or do general mood of the scene. That's one point of contact for me as a lighter. So if you're doing, I don't know, like a horror game, like doing this, for example, a horror game set in, I don't know, the 90s, the 20s, sorry, and you want this look. So first of all, I would, if there's a blockout, I could start working on what's my visual target for that, right? And then another point of contact is like the whole scene is done, textures are done, and you know that textures are PBR compliant because that's one thing that happens. Sometimes you're gonna get that through a validator, and then you find out that your albedo values are not what they should be, and your rough depth values are not what they should be, above one or something like that. Then you're gonna like talk with your environment artist and say, hey, this is not compliant. Let's tweak the materials because they're not going to respond well to light, especially if you're doing PBL route. Because you can sometimes cheat a little bit, but it's not ideal. We as light artists, we shouldn't cheat with materials. We shouldn't mess with that. So yeah, so that's the second point of contact, and then I'm starting doing uh, the main blocking pass and first points pass, and then if the art director or the director of the game has any input on that, I can still like tweak lighting or tweak settings or tweak optimization because that's the other thing. You have like the art director like pushing visual quality to the last, and then you have the technical art director telling you, "Hey, you're getting like too heavy on the frame rate, so let's cut back." So you need to talk with both and find that balance. So yeah, it's more like a back and forth. It's not like this is set in stone. It's just like we have to talk in several points through the production to get the result that we all want.
So as a lighting artist, what is your biggest pet peeve to receive from an environment artist?
My biggest what? Sorry.
Your biggest annoyance, your biggest peeve.
Oh, all right. Okay.
What if somebody was to send over an environment to you and it isn't what you need and you can't work with it? What are the bad things that you've seen?
Raw materials, not PBR compliant materials. There's another thing that is I really don't see it in the scene because it's using Lumen. But if you're using backlighting, the light map resolution is all messed up. So, for example, you have like this big column here, and the light map resolution is like I don't know 128, and it's a big column, and it's going to be probably like it's gonna be prominent in the scene, and the light mode resolution is not up to standards. So that's annoying because you have to manually go and change light mode resolutions. Uh, on light map UVs too. That's another big thing when doing bake lighting. Light mode resolution and light map UVs not being correct, like overlapping UVs or something. So when you bake and you spend like I don't know 3 or 4 hours doing a bake, and then bake turns out and you see like overlapping or really black areas, and then you realize, oh, I just lost 4 hours of my work because light map UVs were not properly set. I think that's a because you lose a lot of time there.
So when you use baked lighting, presumably you use GPU baking rather than CPU baking. For those that have not used it before, is there any differences between the two in terms of setup?
CPU versus GPU lighting bakers.
Yeah, so
Uh,
well, I'll elaborate in the question. Sorry, it was quite general. With a GPU setup versus a CPU setup, is there anything that you want to do differently that you would have with a CPU that you now would do with a GPU setup? And if so, um, is there a complexity change between shifting from CPU to the GPU baking?
it's just I think it's more like a settings approach to that because when you activate like the GPU lightness plugin, for example, you have to think in terms of rays being shoot at the scene and not in terms of scene scale or what on the CPU rendering. So you really have to understand what the settings though in both of them, so you know what to move between both to get the same results. What I've seen is that GPU tends to be a lot more faster but not noisy with the bakes that it does. But you get more quality on the GPU, but it takes a long time. It's with time it's getting like a lot more like it's more on how much time do you want to spend baking and less about the quality of the both solutions. But especially with Unreal and the shift towards like dynamic lighting and lumen, it's kind of a question of if you're still using that or not, basically.
I thought it would be. So in the time that you've spent within lighting, you've obviously done a lot of projects. What's the dream project for you? What would you love to light?
I would love to work on a horror sci-fi game. A Dead Space would be awesome for me, for example. I love that, and I think it shows through my portfolio because I love it, like sci-fi and horror settings. Yeah, I would love to lead something like I don't know, like a Dead Space or something of that vein.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Edwin. It's been fantastic to see you work and also hear about your journey, all the way from starting up your home country where there wasn't as many sort of jobs available to you, and just goes to show your level of persistence is paying off within the position that you are now, and for students to see someone in a journey like yours is nothing but inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing it.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dave, for inviting me, and it's been an honor talking about my life. And like I hope it was good for you guys. And if anything, like I said, you can hit me up anytime.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Thanks
you very
very much,
much, Edwin.
everybody. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We're going to be back again at 1 p.m. For our second guests today with Sarah Makaido and Ryan Miles, who are both going to be talking to us about skills and hiring in the games industry. So hopefully we'll see you then back at 1 p.m. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.